Hey! Alright, how you all doing? Welcome to another Rick and Mandy's Misadventures. And hopefully if you like content of history and football and visiting castles, etc., then please like, subscribe, comment, share and click your notification button for future videos. So today we're going back all the way to 1883 and the FA Cup final between Blackburn Olympic and Old Etonians. Now, Blackburn Olympic were originally formed from two smaller clubs in the area. There were a lot of smaller clubs in the area in those days, and they formed and played at what they call the Hole in the Wall Stadium, which was named after the local pub. In their formative years, they did quite well with their results. They'd won the East Lancs Trophy in 1882, the Blackburn Association Challenge Cup. They won that twice, 1879, 1880, and then the Livesey Cup, which they won in 1878. But the FA Cup was another story. They hadn't even got past the first round on the previous occasions. But 1883 was different. Now, the previous season, their local rivals, Blackburn Rovers, they'd actually got to the final, but were beaten by the Old Carthusians. And so the trophy stayed with the more posher, wealthier southern teams. But this time, Blackburn Olympic were really going to go for it. Now, Blackburn Olympic's cup run began in earnest. They started the first round by beating Accrington 6-3. This was followed in the second round by a sound beating of Lower Darwin 8-1, and in the third round another team from Darwin Ramblers, were destroyed 8-0. Seems like the Darwin team didn't want to turn up that day. In the fourth round, a more modest score of 2-0 against Church, who were another local Lancashire team. The quarter-finals, they took on a Welsh team, Druids. These were from Wrexham and locally Rhuaben, as it's called, and they were soundly beaten 4-1. In the semi-finals, they took on the previous winners, Old Carthusians, and soundly beat them 4-0. This probably would have upset the Carthusians, because obviously they'd won the cup the previous year and against Olympic's local rivals, Blackburn Rovers. Then it was time for the cup final. They were on their way to the Oval in London. Obviously, Wembley Stadium had not been built yet, so that's where they played the final. In the Blackburn Olympic team that was chosen for the final, we had Thomas Hacking in goal, James Ward and Squire Albert Warburton, who were their full-backs, Thomas Gibson, Jack Hunter and William Astley, who were the half-backs, and up front, Thomas Dewhurst, Alfred Matthews, George Wilson, Jimmy Costley and John Yates. There were 4 players who didn't actually make the team, and that was Joe Beverley, Edgar Chadwick, Jack Southworth and William Townley. On the 31st of March 1883, the Football Association Challenge Cup final took place at the Oval Cricket Ground. The match between Blackburn Olympic and Old Etonians went for 90 minutes and the score was 1-1, with goals from Harry Goodham from Old Etonians and an equaliser by Albert Matthews for Blackburn Olympic. There wasn't really a structure on what to do as a draw, so they could either have a replay or they would play on. They decided to go for extra time because both teams were quite happy to do so, despite the fact that Old Etonians had actually lost a player. Obviously in those days they didn't have substitutions, but they managed to carry on. And then in the end, Jimmy Costley scored the deciding winning goal. We start in Blackburn Old Cemetery here with James Lawrence, known as Jimmy Costley. He died on the 10th of March 1931. James was born in Liverpool but signed for Blackburn Olympic, and he was one of the members of the team who won the FA Cup in 1883. Sadly, the team didn't advance much after that and weren't even allowed into the league. So eventually he signed for Everton, where he played 6 appearances and 3 goals. For the first time in the Football Association Challenge Cup's history, it was going to Lancashire, and a northern team made of mill workers. They were not posh, they were not particularly wealthy, and of course they weren't part of the old school tie routine. The cup was actually presented to the team after the match, where normally the southern clubs had been having a dinner, and that would be where they would be presented with the trophy. There was also a speech given by their local MP, William Coddington, who is also buried in Blackburn Cemetery. One player, Squire Warburton, said that the cup would have a nice home in Lancashire and would not be coming back to London. This was partly true, because the cup actually was stolen. It never just disappeared, apparently. So probably someone put and melted it down. And by 1901, when Tottenham Hotspur won the FA Cup, it was a completely different trophy that was presented. After this, of course, professionalism became a bit of a touchy subject. The feeling amongst the London elite was that the northern clubs were paying their players, and this is a reason why they were able to go to Blackpool for a bit of training and not obviously be at work. They didn't take the cup off Blackburn, but it certainly had repercussions for other teams. In particular, in fact, the season after, Preston North End were actually banned from the FA Cup because a team that they played felt that they had too many paid players, and also some players had come from different areas to play the game in the Lancashire area. This would of course lead eventually to the 1888 formation of the Football League, which was mainly a northern league at first. But this also led to the downfall of Blackburn Olympic, because even though they'd won the cup, the following year, 1884, they were in the semi-finals and were possibly able to play Blackburn Rovers in a local derby final, but they lost their semi-final game. Blackburn did go on to win the cup. And of course, when it came to the league being chosen, the man in charge of Aston Villa decided that only one team per area could enter, and therefore Blackburn Rovers were chosen over Blackburn Olympic. And because of their lack of funds, lack of fan base, and when they joined what was called the combination, it rather fell apart, sadly, for them. And so Blackburn Olympic eventually folded and were no more. And part of history deems them to the dustbin, as it were. And despite having been the original team from Lancashire that won the cup, they are largely just forgotten about. And so are sadly some of the players. So that was Blackburn Olympic and their FA Cup win in 1883. For more, you can see us next time, and please like, subscribe, follow, comment, and click your notification button. Until then, right, stop getting my head burnt.